Well, the United Nations says both sides fighting in the Syrian city of Aleppo could be committing war crimes. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says rebel shelling has killed at least 53 civilians, including 18 children, in the past 4 days. A rebel coalition, including the group formerly known as al-Nusra, began an offensive on Friday to break the regime's siege of eastern Aleppo. Meanwhile, Russia's defense minister says peace talks on Syria are delayed indefinitely due to Western failure to stop violent rebels in the country. Well, Ali Mustafa joins us now from Gaziantep on the Turkish-Syrian border with more. So, Ali, first bring us up to speed on exactly what's happening in Aleppo now.
Andrea, you have 275,000 civilians still trapped in eastern Aleppo, despite this rebel offensive, which was to break a months-long siege by the Syrian regime. There is still fighting in eastern Aleppo and in western Aleppo. The Syrian regime describes it as street combat, so it's close-quarter fighting in western Aleppo, as the Syrian regime tries to encircle more of the rebel areas. They launched an offensive, the rebels did, over the weekend, and despite this, they haven't made much headway into further western districts of Aleppo. The Syrian regime is giving stiff resistance, and as I mentioned, 275,000 people in eastern Aleppo still in need of urgent humanitarian aid, while the UN says that both sides, as you mentioned, might be committing war crimes.
So, Ali, while this battle continues in Aleppo, Bashar al-Assad has apparently met with foreign journalists now in Damascus. What did he say?
It was quite a surreal interview if you were to read articles on the New York Times and the New Yorker. He met the Western journalists at his palace in Damascus, and he said that the West should be grateful to the Syrian regime for what he called stopping terrorism. Bashar al-Assad's take on the conflict isn't one of the oppressor versus the oppressed. He views it quite differently. He says that the Syrian regime is fighting terrorism and that the West should support it, and that there will be a time when the regime will be in control of all of Syria, of all of rebel-held Syria. He also asserted that the US is supporting Daesh in Syria. Now, these assertions have been refuted by the Americans and the opposition, and both of them say that Bashar al-Assad is living in a fool's paradise and that the Syrian regime needs to come to terms that it has committed war crimes, something that Bashar al-Assad denied in this meeting with the foreign journalists. Andrea.
Okay. Ali Mustafa, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for joining us from Gaziantep.